Welcome to another training video by H-Impact. This is Travis L. Holt, Senior Software Engineer here at H-Impact. This video will cover how to create a data service that uses CRUD methods from the data repository in our Blazor Server-side project. By the end of this video, the data service will be ready to manage data that will be used for charts in our ChartJS JavaScript library. We are using Microsoft Visual Studio 2019 and Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio 2019 with a SQL Server Express installation. All software is free and is available on Microsoft's website for download. I have included the links in the description below. Also, if you missed the previous BlazorChartJS video, which covered how to create a data repository that contains both synchronous and asynchronous CRUD methods to manage the data in our ChartStats database, I've left the link in the description as well as the project source code. Let's get started. In order to update our ChartStats database, we need to create a way to utilize the CRUD operations we created in the repository class in the previous episode. To do this, let's add a data service class to manage our SQL data with the CityRepo CRUD methods. Right-click the data folder, choose Add, Class, name the class City Service. Click Add. Great. Our data service class has been added successfully. To reference the repository class and gain access to the CRUD operations, let's add a private field. Type private, read only, City Repo _ City Repo. To resolve the namespace issue with City Repo, let's click the light bulb. Choose Using BlazorChartJS.repositories. Great. Now let's highlight it and move it to the bottom so we can keep track of the ones we add. Let's also add a using statement to reference our AppDB context. Our AppDB context resides in the BlazorChartJS.models namespace. Now we'll add another private field to the class as a reference to the AppDB context. Private, read only, AppDB context _ DB. Great. Next, we need to add a constructor to the class. To do this, we type CTOR, tab twice. Now that we have a constructor, we need to add an argument of type AppDBContext and name it DB. Now let's assign the DB context to the private field. Now let's also assign a new instance of City Repo to the private field. we'll also pass the AppDB context into the constructor of the City Repo class. Super. It's time to create the CRUD methods now. We'll begin with the R in CRUD and create read methods. For our first method, we'll go after all the records in the cities table. Public, return type IEnumerable, of type city, with the method name of getCities. Now with this method and all our methods, we need to use the CityRepo object to access the CRUD methods. So let's call the getAllCities method from the CityRepo class to return all cities. GetAllCities. Nice. Now let's create an asynchronous method by copying this method. We also need the task keyword of type IEnumerable of city objects. Okay, great. So let's type await, and let's choose the asynchronous version of this method, async. Finally, let's update the getCities method name and make it getCities async. For the next read method, we'll retrieve one record from the cities table using an ID parameter. Public city, for the return type, get city by ID. Integer parameter and name it ID. Great. Return underscore city repo dot get city, and we'll use the ID we passed into this method. Nice. Now let's copy this synchronous version to create an asynchronous task. We'll add the required asynchronous keyword, as well as the task keyword, return type of city, and we'll add async to the name to distinguish it from the standard getCity by ID. Great. Here we'll add the await keyword and choose the asynchronous version of this method. Nice. Now let's add our next method, which represents the C in CRUD for create. This method will insert a new city record inside the cities table. Public, return type is going to be city, insert city, city parameter, and we'll name it city. Okay, now let's call the corresponding CityRepo.insertCity method. Okay, nice. The City Repo class will return the city that's added, along with the ID that was auto-generated. Okay, now let's take this synchronous version of this method and create an asynchronous version of the method. Copy it, paste it, add the async keyword, as well as the task keyword with city for the return type. We'll add a suffix of async for the insert city. Here we'll add the await keyword, and we'll choose the async version of the insert city method. Excellent. We're almost done. For the U in CRUD, we need to add an update method. This method will be used to update an existing city in the cities table. So we'll start with public, city for the return type, update city for the method name, city parameter, and name it city. Now let's call the corresponding update city from the CityRepo class. Nice. Now, just as before, let's take this method and create an asynchronous method for it. We're going to need the async keyword, with the task keyword. Return type is going to be a city. And we'll modify the name with async for a suffix. Here we'll add the await keyword. And we'll use the async version from the CityRepo class. Perfect. And finally, for the D in CRUD, we'll add a delete method. This method will be used to delete a single city from the cities table. Public, city, delete city, city parameter, named city. And you guessed it, we need to call the delete city method from the CityRepo class. Here we use the city ID property to pass in the ID we wish to delete. Finally, we need to create the asynchronous version for this method. We use the async keyword along with the task keyword. Return type is going to be city. Modify the name to say delete city async. And we use the await keyword. And of course, choose the delete city async version from the City Repo class. Nice. That completes all the CRUD methods for our City Service class. Now let's run the app to make sure it still loads. Excellent. Our Blazor app loads without issue. And all components work just fine. That's all of it. If you have any questions on implementing a data service with this BlazorChartJS application, leave a comment below and I'll do my best on getting back to you. In the next video, we will use this data service to retrieve and display our SQL data. We will also create two Razor components, the city list component and the main city chart component. We'll add a custom grid to the city chart component that will be used to perform the CRUD operations to manage the data behind our ChartJS charts. In the meanwhile, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, click the notification button, give us the thumbs up with a like, and share this video. Comments with or without a question are great too. Again, this is Travis L. Hope. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this training video from himpact.com.